usually with that kind of thing, I call that sort of a healing crossing over with somebody. And yes, I usually try and guide them to the light. I think, the series The Ghost Whisperer was really super because she would show, those people that are trapped there that are wanting to cross over into spirit, but they either have something they want to say or do or whatever. And, then they would go to the light. And I know it sounds very Hollywood, but yes, it is like an ethereal light. And it's not a light of a tunnel. It's actually all the spirit beings of family and friends that come to greet them, to take them across that journey. Now, my dad, a few years ago, he and I had spoken quite a lot before he got sick about the work I do, and he was a great supporter of my work. And so when he got sick and he was living in Australia, so he decided he wanted to go back to the UK to die because his second wife and child he'd lost was buried there, and he wanted to die in the UK. So he went back there, and one of my brothers looked after him. And when he got to that point where we knew he wasn't going to be there much longer, I travelled over to the UK to spend time. And of course, the first time I arrived, and as I went upstairs to the room, and I could see these people already there. And my dad was going, "Who's that? Where? Who's that woman there? Who's that?" And of course, my brother, I'm always the oddball in the family. Nobody really, they knew what I did, but nobody ever really talked about it. But anyway, a little bit like the black sheep, she's one of them. And so anyway, and I said, well, it's your mom and your second wife and, granddad. And he said, but I'm not ready to go. And I said, well, Dad, they're not expecting you to go. They're just waiting here. And when you're ready to go, they'll be here for you. So, with that, with people, when they're dying, people do come to greet them, to meet them, to take them over. But depending upon what's going on in their life, my husband, Chris, he does past life regression, and, he goes, some people are stuck lives, if you like. They're stuck there, they died, and they've not crossed over, if you like, and he helps people transition through that. And, they're stuck in centuries, and if you I love the movie, and I can't remember what it was called. It was Ricky Gervais some years ago, where he'd gone in to have some treatment or something, and obviously died on the table. And then afterwards, he woke up and was seeing dead people, as it were. And these people were coming to him to actually ask him to go and see people or to help them to do things before they actually left. And I sometimes wonder if that's why they don't cross over. So yes, usually if somebody's what I call stuck in a life that they're not left and gone to the spirit side, yes, I usually ask those that are already in spirit that's surrounding them or with them to come and help them to cross over. But again, it's like everything, we still have a certain amount of free will. If they don't want to go, they're not going to go. Yeah. And they can stay there. It's a bit like us, we don't want to do something, we don't have to do it, and we can be stuck where we are. So,
I find, my father suffered from Alzheimer's really bad, and he was in a nursing home the last year of his life, and it was to the point that he didn't even know who I was. Right. He didn't recognize anybody, and I went there one day. This is like the day he died. I went there that morning to visit him. And all of a sudden, he was totally coherent. Totally coherent. He knew who I was. He apologized. We talked about things that, he couldn't even talk towards last. That's how bad it was. And which I found it really interesting. He sat there and he said, "Hey, your mom is, here with me. And she says, I need to come home." And he sat there.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, and he sat there and he said how much he loved me and all this stuff, and we did our closure. And he says, "Don't come back here again. I won't be here after today." And I said, "Well, where are you going to be?"
Oh, how beautiful!
And he said, "I'm going to be with my wife. I'm going to be with your mom." And
how beautiful!
And by the time I got home, which was about an hour drive, I get home, I get the phone call. He passed on. And it was so strange because, I mean, he didn't even know. He couldn't dress himself. He couldn't do anything. And like the last couple hours of his life, he was totally coherent and knew everything. But there he saw my mom, and actually he saw her brother, and actually all her brothers that all, passed on. My grandmother, he was saying all this stuff, and this shocked me, and I asked the doctor about it. I said, hey, you told me his brain was totally gone, that he, was no more than a vegetable. If he wasn't a vegetable, why all of a sudden was he, totally coherent?
Yeah.
And
they don't know.
They don't know. That's what the doctor said.
No.
So
they don't know.
I think my mom was there, and and she told him it was time to come home, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah. It's funny because Chris's mom, when she was dying, and she was very much into religion and the Catholic Church, but when she was dying, she said, Mom, I'm here, come and get me. So she actually called to her mom. And, my grandfather did that as well. He was, he had several heart attacks, and he just opened his eyes at one point and smiled at everybody and then closed them again. He didn't die at that point, but I knew he wasn't going to be there. And I said to my grandmother, I said, I'm heading home. He's not going, he's not going to be here much longer. It was just that smile. It was almost like, I'm fine. I'm ready to go kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, when Dad was going through his process, it was funny because when I got there, we thought he would only have a few days to live in that respect. And I don't mean that in the unkind way. It was just that he had deteriorated fairly quickly. But when I got there, it was almost like he picked up and decided to hang around for another 3 weeks, which was really great. But he would go in and out of these phases of being coherent, and then he would have these conversations, which I made notes on, and I'm going to try and write a book on it because, he kept on talking about all these things. And my brother said, well, what's he babbling on about? And I said, I think he's going through things in his life, like a review of his life before he dies. And he's covering things that maybe he didn't do right, or maybe he's got to change, or maybe there are things he has to be aware of. And, because it gave us some sort of questions of things that we didn't know about his life, and I have no idea if we'd ever be able to find them out. But, he was, there were some points where he was, babbling in our minds, but, I was sitting there going, I think he's reviewing stuff, going through things in his life, sort of like a mini fast forward, before he, like a review board of himself, not somebody reviewing him, but, I do believe when people say, we sit at the with Christ or whoever our maker is, and then we're reviewing it. And I think we just sit in front of ourselves and review our life and what we have and haven't done before we pass into spirit. So the fact that your dad was able to do his forgiveness with you was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's obviously something he truly wanted to do, whereas some people don't get that chance or decide not to and then wait till they're in spirit and do that afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I look at people who were killed, like in a car accident or a plane crash or whatever, the Titanic when they went down, all those souls there. And it just makes me, wonder how many people, or souls, I should say, are, walking the earth yet. And, it's scary because, like I said, there's gentle souls, I guess. And then, I think there's evil ones. And I guess if you were a murderer and went around and killed a bunch of people as a serial killer, I sure wouldn't want to run into your spirit.
Yeah. Well, again, we get the option, I try and explain to people, and this is something Dad shared with me when he passed into spirit, actually, that it's almost like they go into a healing room to heal themselves from their life that they've had. So basically clearing it away, like, I suppose, erasing everything. And I don't mean erasing it from the memory, but, going through and, I suppose, unwinding everything, if that makes sense. That this is what he went through, and at that point it's almost like you get the opportunity to review your own life, what you've done, what you haven't done. And, I said, well, how long are you there for? Like, is it like days, weeks, months, years? And he said, well, it's your choice on what you want to do. So I think it's a case of that you have to want to be aware of things. It's a bit like going to a psychologist or somebody here or a therapist. If you're not prepared to open that Pandora's box and go through that particular event or situation that happened in your life, then you're going to be doing it for years. Whereas when you're ready, that Pandora's box is open and then you can clear that and then move on to the next thing. So I think that might be the case with people that have done some not so nice things in life. And they have to be there to review themselves.
Yeah. Hey,
I've had a lot of... Sorry.
Oh, Kevin wants to ask you a question.
Okay.
Well, it's just like an add-on. Well, back in 2016, I crashed a motorcycle, and, well, I didn't crash it. I got hit. I was on a freeway, and a lady was on her cell phone, and she came and, my dad here can explain the story better.
Yeah. Well, he was hit and almost died on a motorcycle. So what did you see, Kevin?
Well, that's the crazy thing.
Why don't you come over here and talk in this mic so she can hear you?
Yeah, I can hardly hear him. So.
Okay, come over this way.
I thought you got that fixed.
No, I
be in the limelight.
I couldn't use Skype tonight. Okay, so we had we use a regular phone, which when we go don't use Skype, that microphone does not work. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyways, so when I was riding my motorcycle and I got hit, basically I woke up in the hospital and there was light, and I was like, what happened? Like, am I dreaming? Like, I swear I was just on my motorcycle like 5 minutes ago riding, and was I dreaming? Like, for real, I have dreams that I'm actually doing stuff. Like, the dreams that I have, they feel real. So when I woke up from my crash, I was like, is this a dream? What's going on? Like, what's going on? And then when the doctors were working on me, they were holding me down, and I'm sitting here screaming, and I'm thinking in my head, like, what's happening? What's happening? Like, this is crazy. Yeah. And then days and weeks after, I start having dreams of my crash, and I felt like somebody saved me, like, because that crash was very severe.
Well, it sounds like you were almost like going, near death, and you were very close to maybe crossing over, and maybe something pushed you back, keep you from crossing over, Kevin. That's what I think. So,
Yeah. It's out-of-body experiences that people have had where there's so many recorded information. I think the one that hit the Hollywood some years ago was the little boy that almost died, and his father was a minister, and he had gone to pray for him, and the child said, I thought I sat and Jesus Christ looked after me, and I sat there, and he said, I've got to go back, and the movie was really beautiful, and because it was
that's exactly how I felt too. Like, I felt something like, push me back, but I didn't realize like what happened, because when I woke up, I thought I was like dreaming. I thought I was literally dreaming, and That was the crazy thing.
Yeah. I'm just glad it didn't happen to me. I'm